Hello everyone, my name is Peterhans, and this is my submission for the Multimedia presentation for History 705. For my history presentation, I chose to do it on professional opportunities in the field of public history, particularly in museum work. Being that I have nearly 5 years of experience in the field so far, I figured I could give some key takeaways and things that I've learned along the way as a mini lecture, as well as include part of a brief portion of a tour that I'm working on at my current job, just to give an idea of some of the work that people do when they work at museums. My first key takeaway is to look for internships. For any aspiring history student, I would say try to look for internships, whether they be paid or unpaid. Hopefully you're able to land one that is paid. Can be a little bit difficult in our line of work. However, it is important to definitely look for these internships. This happened for me when I was studying for my undergrad at Colorado Mesa University, when I was studying history with a minor in public history. My advising professor came to me with an opportunity because I needed to fulfill my internship through the program. And he had this opportunity come to him from the U.S. Department of Energy. Originally, I was a little confused that there was a history internship offered with the U.S. Department of Energy, as most of the careers at the U.S. Department of Energy are way more science-based than they are history-based. So I would say that is another key point, is definitely look for places that are unexpected to offer internships. You know, even if it seems like it's way more of a scientific field, or they're asking for a public affairs student or someone in public relations, sometimes this can be your in to have a history opportunity. Another key takeaway is to get involved in local small museums, and sometimes even if it's just a volunteer unpaid position, don't discount a lot of these small museums. Oftentimes they're just looking for students to help digitize some of their collections, or they need help on the weekends, having people be there as a docent or a tour guide. Definitely look in your area at some small museums. Particularly in my city, it's a fairly small city, so there weren't a lot of museums already open at the time. And so I knew when the opportunity came up with the U.S. Department of Energy to open a new, smaller museum, that I had to jump at it, that it was going to be a great internship that would just kickstart my career, and it really has. I am still currently at the museum, and I've learned so much on my career working for a small museum, because another thing that you'll find if you are able to get in with the smaller museums when they're just starting out is that you learn a lot of the work at once. So rather than having individual employees for each area, maybe originally you want to just do the museum collections. Well, starting out, I helped manage the museum collections. I helped out with the exhibits, finalizing the exhibits before the museum even opened. I created publications for the museum, just all those things that museums just starting out kind of need help with. And even if a museum has been there for 20 years, they might not have something as simple as a brochure. And that might be something that you can help them create, even if it doesn't seem like, totally in the line of public history. It really is, and will help give you good ground lines of work for future work. Another thing that I would suggest is to join organizations that deal with our field of public history. So, such as the National Council on Public History. I'm sure all of us are pretty well aware with that organization, but there's other ones such as the National Association for Interpretation, as well as the American Association for State and Local History. And those are just to name a few. Particularly the National Association for Interpretation. They offer a variety of trainings and programs for people who are looking to get in the field of interpretation, which just simply means guides who work at museums and state parks. Sometimes they work for the National Park Service at historic sites, and that is their entire line of work, is doing these walking tours and having school groups in and creating programs that are going to be engaging with the public, as well as sharing the accuracy of the site's history and natural resources. Once you do get in the field of history, and particularly public history, I would say it's important to understand that jobs are going to look different and require sometimes more than just your knowledge on a specific topic or era in history. Again, starting with my internship in 2018, I had no knowledge on the site's specific history, which was Manhattan Project and the uranium boom in Grand Junction specifically. I had no knowledge on that. However, that didn't really matter, as what mattered was that I did have some experience doing office work and some experience just, in the field of history and then I was also willing to learn and just grasp onto the concepts and what the agency was about, our mission, and the purpose behind the museum. Another thing that I would say is that kind of be expected that, a lot of the work, like I said, it's going to look different. Not all of it's going to be directly that history tie-in. Particularly at my job, there's a lot of the kind of administrative back end of the work, such as preparing the exhibit materials, preparing program materials, filling out safety documents. And then a big one is project plans, creating project plans for my outreach and my programs, as well as any temporary exhibits I work on. All of that includes project plans. Not every organization is going to require you to write and create project plans for your projects that you're working on. However, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you is to practice good project management. Again, even if the organizations don't require it, definitely try to practice creating project plans now. Take trainings online or look up examples online, even if you're not working in the field yet. For any new program, I'm definitely expected to create a project plan and stick to it best I can. Work the plan the work, as they say. And additionally, it's also good to practice your program on others. Once you even have that program created, you have your perfect history tour, practice it. Practice with your coworkers, with your family, anyone that you can. Again, even if you're not working at a museum yet, just start creating programs now on just areas of history that you're interested in. And then create notes afterwards. What worked, what didn't. For this last portion of this video, you will see a brief portion of a new tour that I'm working on at Las Colonias Park. It's one of our sites here in Grand Junction, not specifically at the museum that I work, the Atomic Legacy Cabin, but it's also important. I want to show this piece of the tour because it's important to understand that while I created a script for my tour, and that's often how I start out my programs and tours, that's just kind of an initial guideline. Even though you'll see me reading off the script, that's really just for my practice session. So when I'm practicing it on my friends, my family, and my coworkers. But ultimately, when you're working this kind of field of work, you can never expect what real visitors are going to ask on a tour. So you must always be prepared for the unexpected. So I hope you enjoy this mini lecture, and I hope you enjoy the tour. Thank you.
Welcome to Las Colonias Park in Grand Junction, Colorado. My name is Peterhans, and I'm an interpretive specialist and a contractor for the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Legacy Management. I will be your tour guide today as we explore the history of this beautiful park. The story of this park begins with this brick building right over here. In the late 1890s, the sugar beet industry came to western Colorado, and it was here that the beets were processed. This building dates back to 1899 and was once Colorado's first sugar beet factory right here in Grand Junction. Known as the white gold of Colorado, sugar beets quickly became a lucrative business for farmers and factory owners. Locals will know that the Grand Valley is famous for agriculture and produce of all kinds, such as wine grapes and more notably the Palisade peaches. However, the Grand Valley's venture in agriculture truly began with sugar beets. Sugar beets were so profitable, in fact, that the Holly Sugar Company paid farmers a great rate at $12.60 per ton, as well as providing good jobs during World War I. However, these prices sharply declined after the war, and after a few bad harvests, the factory was shut down for good in 1933. While the building remained all but vacant in the decades to follow, this ended in 1950 when the Climax Mill Company purchased it along with the surrounding 114 acres on this riverfront property to build 14 more buildings for the Climax uranium mill. During World War II, Grand Junction was at the epicenter of the Manhattan Project in the West. And this was because of its central proximity on the Colorado Plateau, which was known for its abundance in uranium. After the war ended, the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission encouraged uranium mining and processing to continue as they needed to increase the nuclear stockpile as the nation entered the Cold War. It was in this post-war period that the American West became so focused on uranium that the era was known as the uranium boom. And mills such as this one right over here popped up in towns large and small across the Colorado Plateau. At its height, the Climax uranium mill produced 10.2 million pounds of U3O8 oxide and 46 million pounds of vanadium oxide. The mill processed uranium and vanadium from 1950 until about 1970 when it closed. During its operating years, the Climax uranium mill produced 2.2 million tons of uranium mill tailings, which is a waste byproduct that results from the milling process. Due to the large accumulating pile, the company allowed private citizens and contractors to come in and take these mill tailings for fill projects all across the Grand Valley. These mill tailings seemed like they would be perfect for fill projects as they were a fine, sandy material that was free. However, it was not until the late 1960s that the Colorado Department of Health began testing these mill tailings, only to find out that they were emitting elevated levels of harmful radon gas. This, of course, spurred a massive valley-wide cleanup effort that we will continue to explore at the next stop along our tour.